iconic Zuelke Building in downtown Appleton. And to help introduce Matt, I want Jim Krieger to come forward. Where are you, Jim? Jim's going to say a few words about how all this contact was made in the first place. Am I correct? Is that what you're going to talk about?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. I just wanted to mention how I got to know Matt. Back in 2022, the Zuelke Building started getting underway, and they contacted Gwen, Matt or one of the people from his company, to see if we could help out with some historic displays in the cabinets in the foyer. And so I went over there and started helping, and then Mark Morrison helped, and we got them all laid out. And I got to know Matt quite a bit, and got to watch him do and progress. And I wound up doing a little extra stuff. Matt had a lot of really nice pictures that were sort of beat up, and obviously they were 50, 75 years old, 100 years old. And I took those to photographers, and I had them all restored and framed, and they're hanging in the building, and it really tells the story of the building. So I asked Matt, along the way, would you be interested in talking about the building at one of our meetings? And he said, yes, I would. And in fact, he's quite excited about it. I think it's his baby. So, and then the other thing that his company was gracious enough to do is they did make a donation to our museum. And they're very interested in Appleton, and they're hoping to do more things in Appleton. But the thing I want to thank Matt and his company for is saving that building. Because to be very honest, Matt may not talk about it, but I know he and I talked about it. It would have been far cheaper to raise the building and build a new one than it was to fix the old one. And they were committed to doing that and saving that building and that landmark. And it's just something, it's ironic, isn't it, that it would take someone out of Appleton to save one of our buildings instead of the city fathers saving them and yanking them down like they do. But anyway, we're glad to have Matt here. Well, thank you, everyone, and I want to thank Matt because just to put this in perspective, he's an extremely busy person. He drove up from Indiana today to do this. He'll drive home tomorrow, so it's quite a commitment for him to do this. I'm very, very appreciative of it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Jim's been a great partner through all this. Like you said, I'm Matt Cremer with Tegethoff Development, and we are a multifamily developer. We've ventured into some different types of real estate assets over the years, but we cut our teeth in historic preservation type projects. The 6 I did or was involved in before pale in comparison to the Zuelke, so it was only a slight warm-up for what we embarked on. Many called us crazy for it. We got a lot of hesitation from banks, from investors, but we were committed. It was in 2020 when we got a call from a mutual connection saying, hey, we had our project fall through. Can you help us out? We need to sell this building. We don't want it to fall into further disrepair. We think there's a project here. Can you guys take a look? So I jumped on a plane, got up here, walked right into that lobby, as all of you have done many times before, and immediately was sold. This is the one. We got to do it. We got to find a way. And that is very difficult. Some of the things that I had in my presentation were to talk about why go into such great painstaking lengths to develop a project like this. Well, for one, we're a for-profit developer. That is what we do, and that has to be in every one of our projects. It has to return value to our investors and to our banks. So to do that and also be a history, to appreciate history, to want to preserve something as important as this building is, and the features and very amazing finishes that exist in the building, and do that all to turn a profit or at least have a stable investment is very challenging. There's a lot of red tape. We were awarded Wisconsin and federal historic tax credits, and without those, the project would have never happened. Like Jim said, we talked about this before, and yes, it would have been cheaper to build the Zuelke Building from the ground up, which amazes people when we tell them that. But the amount of challenges and conflicts to meet modern building code, to deliver the type of technology and finishes that our residents expect and demand, all in a building that was built 100 years ago, that was added on 60 years ago, I believe, if I have my math correct, presents some unique challenges. When we first walked in there, it was raining in the 12th floor. The roof was either pooled with water or leaking in. There was surprisingly 2 tenants that were still occupying as office through it all, because the building was just in terrible shape. Plaster falling, concrete was in rough shape, windows were in rough shape. A lot of the exterior masonry, because of how amazing the original construction was surprisingly very well intact, as you know. We did, honestly, very minimal work to the exterior facade of the building. It consisted of cleaning, polishing brass, replacing windows that had failed, entry systems, just very, very minor, to be honest with you. We did not have to touch the limestone. We did not have to re-tuck point for the most part. We patched some old holes that were drilled through. So that was its saving grace. If the exterior had fallen into worse shape, I'd say the project probably could not have gotten done, just due to the sheer expense of constructing on a 12-story building. High-rise construction is challenging. For example, we had to remove 12 stories of windows and install a temporary construction lift to bring construction materials up and down through the building. That piece of equipment needs a full-time operator who is licensed. They get paid quite a heavy hourly rate. They're there all day long, every single day. A sheet of drywall cannot go up to the 10th floor without an operator there. So that's just one example of something that makes it challenging. But it was also a lot of fun. So we discovered things such as, when I first walked in there, I'd heard about these elevators. Many of you have already come up to me today and mentioned how you've got fond memories of the elevator operator operating that elevator for up until recent history, which is quite impressive because you don't see that very often. Well, when we had walked in there, there was 1960s corrugated wood paneling covering every inch of all 3 elevators. The brass doors were still exposed, and we had just assumed at some point somebody took the cabs out and put new cabs in. Well, come to our surprise is when we pulled those off, the brass was all behind it, which is unbelievable that somebody would choose to cover up finger-jointed brass paneling with corrugated 1960s cardboard at its best. But when we found that, we had already ordered new elevator cab finishes to the tune of something like $30,000, and it was immediately, they said, no, you can't return those. There's no credit. Fine. We flushed 30 grand joyfully as we accepted the brass elevators in their original form. So the craftsmanship and tradespeople in this region is impressive. In our other markets in the Midwest, I was surprised to find the level of quality, pride in some of these trades that you don't see very much anymore. The plasters, trim carpentry is, I guess, a lost art. Because what we see in most of our projects is not the greatest quality. But we found trim carpenters that were willing to work with lumber yards to mill profiles on crown molding to match existing crown molding that were found in the hallways. We might have had a section that was damaged over the years and we just needed to replace it. And if you walk in there today, there's no way you could point out what section of the crown was replaced and what was left original. So that goes, same for the elevators. We had found an amazing metalworks company who came in and patched holes and polished and made those cabs look brand new. One of the very irreplaceable elements of the building. You'll never see it anywhere else. Nobody will ever pay for that type of construction, and just another reason why this building had to be saved. It had to be preserved. It did not need to be whitewashed. It's not an HGTV project. It's something that we took a lot of pride in figuring out a way to take what was there, honor it, try to add to it, preserve it, and give it a new lifespan. Maybe some of you don't know how all the marble existed inside the building, but apparently from multiple people I've been told this story that a cathedral in Milwaukee was slated during the Depression to be built. It did not, and Irving Zuelke had purchased multiple train cars worth of marble that was supposed to go in a grand cathedral in Milwaukee, and so that's why you see it throughout the entire building. That marble has stayed in great shape. The floors were they needed some love. Once again, we had found another great subcontractor in the area who had the type of equipment needed to do the grit polishing on the marble floors to go from very rough to almost see your reflection in them, which was really cool to see. Just all these things are kind of the fun that you don't always get to have in our business. A lot of times it's schedule, budget, which it was here, but it's also a little bit of art. It gets sort of boring to do, the same similar construction styles that you see often. So it's fun when you get the chance to get into a project like this, and that's really what excited us day one. It's what excites us today still. It's what excites the people that are still moving in, because when they walk in those front doors, just like I did, it gives the same reaction as, why would I want to rent at another location other than this? So working with Jim was a lot of fun. We went on quite a few artifact treasure hunts to figure out what can we find and preserve in this building. It has all those display cases on the first floor, which he put countless hours into. It was just impressive, the pride and just willingness to jump in and help us do this right. So it was without a hesitation to make a donation. I told him today we have actually some extra marble in our basement that we're willing to part ways with for your new location, which he toured me about an hour ago. And that is a special project that you have there. It's amazing to see the type of things that you all have been able to collect over the years, and what a cool building. That's going to be a showstopper for people who are coming to experience what you are all working towards. A lot of these pictures were what I referenced and what Jim referenced that we worked on, getting blown up, put in these displays. It's historic pictures. It's pictures of businesses. There's just a fantastic array of things. There's musical instruments from the Irving Zuelke Music Company that are displayed. We have a few things from former businesses that were occupied in the building. So there's just some cool things you wouldn't expect. I think there's a lot of people that live there that are also not from the region that I think have found it interesting, just living in a building that has a story, and learning a little bit about the story just by way of photos and different items that are shown. So we had a lot of fun with that. I referenced how the building was built. Really, it was 90 years ago and expanded 60 years ago. That presented its own challenge. So when you get to floor 6, where it transitions to 7, the structure completely changes from a concrete and rebar with steel joisting to a basically kind of like a truss, a steel truss system that has a metal pan with poured concrete on top that goes all the way up. And that it created different things going on. So that had to be fire rated differently because it had exposed steel, which doesn't meet the fire protection ratings that you need. So that required a whole host of challenges to get that structure to be able to meet modern code. There's differences in the hallway width. So one thing that was amazing to watch was we had to lift the marble off of 2 hallway walls, store it in a way that it didn't get damaged, move the wall so the hallways now line up from top to bottom, which is critical when you're doing multifamily construction because you need to have all of your plumbing stacked, all of your pipe runs they need to go into similar wall cavities from basement to roof due to the type of systems that are involved here. It's not your single family HVAC system that you're used to seeing in a house. It's a water source heat pump system with boilers and chillers. So that's running through the entire building. It's a pretty cool system. It's very energy efficient and effective. When it gets super cold, the building heats very, very well. But that was a huge challenge. The part of the process of putting this building on the National Registry and getting awarded state and federal tax credits, we went through a very intense architectural review plan with the National Park Service administers the program, and then at the state level, there's a state historic preservation office of Wisconsin that acts as the local affiliate of the National Parks program. So they reviewed everything from what can we build this style of flooring in. They weren't sure, we weren't sure what was the original flooring used on floors 7 through 12. I had my theory, they had theirs. They didn't want to see any type of wood look LVT, and come to find out, finding non-wood look vinyl plank flooring is very challenging. There's only a few lines out there that actually look somewhat tasteful that exist. So there's just a lot of challenges in doing this. They usually mean more money, these challenges. So I'm proud of our team for battling through the adversity. Green Fire Management was the construction GC. They had an incredible team. Communication, decision-making, awareness to help lead us through this. When we're in Indianapolis and making visits once or twice a month to be on site and managing most of the process from afar with our architect was critical. So it was certainly not an effort just by us. We had a great team, great architect. We had support from the city as well. So kind of back to the how do you do it, why do you do it, how do you keep it to make any type of economic sense? Well, it's hard, as I mentioned. Tax credits are a big component of it. And then the city of Appleton supported us with a TIF. And I think there's a lot of conversation nationwide in the different markets we're in about city-backed tax support, and does that line the developer's pocket? can stand here up here today confidently to tell you that it doesn't. Without these things, these projects just don't happen. So we were awarded a percentage of our real estate taxes back to us over a period of 15 years here. So just by math, for people are curious, I get this question a lot, like what does it really mean? Well, when we bought the building, the taxes were somewhere around $40,000 a year. And due to the construction project and the improvement of the building, the taxes are much greater. So project never happened, $40,000 a year. Project happens, it's a much larger number. So when these deals happen with the city, we're talking about the difference of tax growth being something to help us secure financing for the project. So without that, without the tax credits, we couldn't get this thing done. So there's a lot that goes into it. We were fortunate to learn the lesson on some past projects. Like I said, they pale in comparison to this. So some of these pictures here are kind of fun. These little Zuelke emblems on the side of the building, you may never notice them driving by it because they were basically just caked in soot and dirt. I don't even know, but they were cleaned and repainted. So it's actually just it's a concrete formed panel that's up there. It's not bronze like some of the other exterior elements are. We had a sign vendor called Sign Art Studios there near the Madison area. They were an amazing resource in creating this beautiful sign. The owner is kind of cut from the same cloth as we are, and really wanted to do this period sensitive. So he took a lot of the design elements that you might see in signage in the 20s and 30s and fit to this building's architectural style. He actually hand gold leafed this sign. So there's 24 karat gold leaf that he polished into the sign, which is amazing. Never seen that before. Didn't know anything about it. As he explained to me, this is a construction method on signs that will last far longer than any type of powder coating or paint products, which is cool and interesting. But that's why that flicker of gold is actually gold, which is cool. So we spent I think we spent a few thousand more to do that and get the durability out of it and get that little extra, which I think that the building deserved. So we're really, really happy with how that turned out. A lot of this bronze work, polishing up the sign was amazing how well that turned out. Some of these pictures are probably a little small showing up there, but you can just see this is the state of which we had to deal with here. Some of this is a little bit in the middle of demolition, but these are the upper floors where there wasn't the historic finishes. We had some doors. We saved all the doors. We saved the hardware, reused it, but for the most part, you're dealing with sagging plaster ceilings, leaking pipes, just a mess of things. So we're cutting pipes out. We're removing all the steel lath that's been staple shot into the concrete. So people are taking literally circular saws and cutting it out by piece with sparks flying. It's just the process to go from where it was to now is brutal. It is absolutely brutal. So we took this. We had an architect draw up the entire building. Let's figure out how do we work with what we've got. There's all kinds of strange little nooks and crannies. We got to work with them. So for example, you see a unit plan like this, which is it takes a weird U. There's an elevator shaft right in the middle of this unit. In new construction, you'd never have a design like this, but it worked out. So it's a cool living space that has 2 window walls. It's got a bedroom that's got 3 windows. The bathroom tucks right in an area that doesn't have any windows. So it's just some of those types of things, which is nuanced and difficult. Figure out how can you create something that people actually want to live in, because that if you don't do that, it's just an art project. So we're really happy with how our unit layouts played out. There's units that are in of about 500 square feet on the low end, up to 1,100. So we had to work with what we had to get the right type of layouts to get these units to actually be livable. But we were able to do so with I think this you see in this upper left is probably one of the toughest units that we had to lay out. And this is the smallest kitchen, but it's still pretty decent for the size of this unit. It's got good cabinetry. You've got French door, full-size appliances. Each unit has full-size washer dryer. So it's got the modern features you're looking for. It's the technology in the building is incredible. Security systems are modern and advanced, and that's the type of features you have to deliver in a super competitive rental apartment market. So these are some of the finishes that are in the units themselves. We've got a number of amenities. We've got fitness, pool, TV lounge, bike storage, business center with offices, golf simulator. We've got like little outdoor pet area, grill station outside. We're limited to the amount of outdoor space we have, which is literally just towards the park, about maybe 10, 15 feet by 20 feet. So we maximize it, put a grill out there, put some seating, interacts pretty well with Houdini Plaza. So we're happy with how that turned out. The emblems had fallen off the elevator whenever they put the cardboard up. So we had to recreate that little plaque to what we thought it might look like. That was our best guess. Some of the rules are, like, we can't make changes to the building during our compliance period. So we couldn't just go in and paint the exterior. We couldn't go in there and rip out the elevators and put a new one in that wasn't approved by the preservation office. So, not that we would, but that's part of the rules. When you get awarded tax credits and you put the building on the register, you have a period of compliance where you cannot make changes that are not approved. This project in total was $21 million. That includes all the hard construction costs, soft costs, things like architecture, engineering, permitting, interest carry. We had to pay our bank the whole time while we were under construction. So yeah, $21 million. It's quite the price tag. Like I said, if we had a $21 million 66-unit apartment project come across our desk that wasn't supported with tax credits, that wasn't supported with city tax incentive, it would not happen. So it isn't quite worth what it cost to say it.
Do you know what the original cost was?
I don't. Do you? Okay. I'd like to know. I bet it was something amazingly low.
What was your budget for that, in terms of what it cost versus what you paid?
Good question. Our budget was 19.8, and it turned into 21. So We just had to reach a little deeper in our pockets.
When was the original building, Zuelke Building, and I think it did have a fire, if I'm not mistaken.
The original, I believe, was an 1896 building that burned down, or maybe that was the date of the fire.
I think it's gotta be a little
I
later.
Yeah, I think it would be a little later. So I think the original building was built in 1896, and then the fire was probably sometime in the 20s.
I think it was, yeah.
There was a fire in 1876 that took down the
First one, okay.
And then there was a second fire in 1928 that took down the second building. That's the one that most people are familiar with seeing the photos of. So, and then the building was built roughly around 1880. I think that's pretty close on that.
Okay, yep. What do we got here? Okay, yep, so 1880 for the first commercial bank building. He bought it in 1926, and then 2 years later it burned down. So then I've read a number of old news articles pulled from, if you go on like newspapers.com, I'm sure that most of you are pretty familiar with that, and you can search keywords. So I found a lot of interesting pieces on the building before it was constructed and when it opened. And he vowed to make a building that was fireproof. So that's why it is built out of concrete and steel, which now in 2024 they argued it is not fireproof. You need to do a lot, including sprinkle the entire thing, every inch of it, and more than just that.
Pat, if I might, your early picture about the starting of the project with sort of the gutted out floors
Mm-hmm.
reminded me a little bit of what we're doing at 231. But at 231, we've got the second floor, the first floor, and the basement, and with enough effort, we could just haul the stuff right out the door and put it in a dumpster. How did you deal with all the refuse out of 12 different stories?
Well, for one, we didn't have any volunteer work. They were well paid. They had a chute. So basically, the chute would tee and go through a window. So I mean, it looked like a big windsock, for lack of a better term. That also had to be sprinkled, just in case the dumpster caught on fire, and then somehow the fire went up the windsock into the building, and then lit the concrete building on fire. But so that happened. But yes, that was. I mean, that's what happened. The amount of dumpsters that were used on this project to just. It's amazing.
How long did it take?
It took about 18 months, 17 months. So I'd say it was probably substantially done within about 14 or 15, and then just like every project, everyone tries to go on to the next job, and you got to pull them back, say finish your work before we finish paying you, and then it's over.
The original plan called that to dig a basement with cars.
So that was actually a developer prior to us, so they had that plan. We did not choose to go that route. So or YMCA. Yep.
So your last question is apartment rents, how much?
Apartment rents range pretty much from about $1,200 to $1,900. Yeah, it really isn't. Like, especially now when you can compare that to what a possible mortgage might cost, it's quite the deal. 66 plus one commercial space, which is the Bureau Atelier.
What became of the 12th floor? What's in there now?
Units. So every floor, almost every floor has 6 units, 3 on each side, and the ends kind of wrap, except for the second floor. So the second floor has a unique floor plan because it's got that vaulted first floor cutting into it, but everything else is pretty much, it's not identical, it's just there are 6 units on each floor, so including 12. We looked at some different options there, but we really had to get the unit count. We looked at some bigger units. Should we do a penthouse up there? And that just, we're trying to deliver the units at a price point that we felt would be appealing to a larger market versus trying to do units that were going to be in the $3,000 plus a month range. Just we're a little concerned about trying to do that, and we figured more units is better. So
So in 1928, it was coal heat, apparently. When you took over, was it a hot water heat or a forced air system, and what do you have now?
So it was a boiler radiator heat system. So steam, generates steam, typical radiator setup. So the radiators, I don't know if I had a picture. I've got a picture in the I have another inventory of things that I was going to be able to pull up. The radiators we preserved, so they're just kind of a feature. They've got the IZ emblems on them, so they're pretty cool. We had a plaster come and kind of work. They kind of all were in some level of disrepair, plates falling off and stuff. So we had to deal with that and bring drywall to get like a smooth transition from them because they're really just inset in those exterior walls. But now we have a 2-pipe system, so it's a boiler heat, but it's a more modern system where there's still a refrigerant loop that runs through all the different blowers in every single unit or space, and those blow over a hot pipe, or in the summer when your AC, it has a valve in it that switches, so then it's a cold pipe that's blowing over, and so it's a pretty efficient system. It was fun to learn about, where if somebody's cooling a unit, which is basically, instead of thinking about it cooling, it's actually taking heat out of the unit. If somebody on the other side of the building, when the sun might not be at an angle where it's hitting that side, has heat on, this may happen in your fall or spring where it'll use that same heat because it's all in one system, so they kind of almost can donate energy between the two. So in the spring and fall, it's quite energy efficient.
How big is your mechanical room?
It's probably, we have a few, but the boiler room is probably, it's probably as big as the seating area here in the basement.
Somebody that mans that 24 hours a day, or?
Nope, it's all on remote controls. You can see everything. If some type of issue is going on, it'll alert you. It takes a quarterly maintenance.
You don't have anybody to man it?
Nope.
I mean, not like before.
Nope, you really don't have to do much. The manufacturers all recommend certain things happening every single quarter, whether it's filters or flushing of things or what have you. But other than that, yeah.
So did you do anything to the roof where they could put like a garden, or they can go up there and sit, or is it just a roof?
Would have liked to. The hard part about it is we would have had to extend the elevator shaft, which was going to create a lot of different issues. One from cost, from structural load, from historic preservation, because now the site angle.
People jumping off?
That would be it. Another thing you would have to contend with. The apartment renters at times can get crazy. We don't have any balconies, and honestly kind of nice. Well, every other project we have has balconies.
You, windows open up or not?
No, they do, but we shut them because they're unable to be screened. And they only can they're 60s replacement windows, so they crank in. Actually, I'm sorry, they crank out, and they don't crank out very far. It's one of the things I didn't like, but we have a fresh air ducted system that brings fresh air replacement into every space of the building. So that's the flip side. Yes, sir.
What's the average age of your renters?
Varies. I'd say predominantly it's around 30, but there's quite a bit of people between 55 and 75, I'd say. There's people that have sold homes and said, "Hey, I want to simplify my lifestyle, and when the faucet breaks, you fix it. And when the HVAC filter needs to be replaced, you do it, and I can shut the door and leave." So we're seeing a lot of that everywhere. Yes?
Did you say how many square feet? One of you said one was 500 square feet?
Some of them are, yes.
What's the largest and what's the medium one?
About 800 or 900 square feet is your typical one bedroom, one bath. Maybe more like 750 to 900. 900 on the larger side of the one bedrooms.
How many units are rented?
Somewhere in the upper 50s right now. Due to the timing of our lease up, we had a lot of people where their lease just ended. So right now, we were 100% occupied in 2 months. Right when we opened, people were banging down the door to sign leases. So now we kind of have a lot of that, those 12-month leases expiring. So we're kind of in a backfill scenario right now.
Appleton Historical Society had a presentation from Lawrence University's geology professor, and she had mentioned that you have million-year-old fossils in the exterior of the building. Have you seen them yourself? And
I don't know about the exterior, but definitely the interior. On the lobby, there's one of the marble panels, pretty close to the elevator, that you can see it's very clearly like a fish. It's very clear. So yeah, that we've had requests for people with Lawrence to come take people in to take a look at it. So it's pretty cool.
Do you have any restaurant or anything on the first floor?
We have a women's clothing boutique. Really nice store. Restaurant just didn't work.
But I was just thinking,
Yeah.
something just to take.
Yeah. Yep. Most of our first floor space is reserved for resident amenities, so each floor is only 7,500 square feet. So once you have that big lobby entry, you're not left with a lot left. So we had a couple bathrooms, fitness, business center, management office. The pool table TV lounge is on the first floor. So, and that rounds it out. We're pretty focused on.
Businesses in there at all, huh?
No, all apartments other than the one retail tenant.
Your on-site maintenance person?
Pfefferly is our management company, so they're a block away.
Zuelke family members still around?
Yes. Irving Zuelke's granddaughter, Sue, had reached out when we first started the project, and she lives, I believe, in Virginia. Came to go tour the building, which was pretty cool. She had shared a bunch of things with us, including some handwritten notes. I believe all the things that she gave me, I gave back to her, because they were more like family keepsake things. So, but yeah. So this was, okay. This is like your typical floor on the upper floors. There's an example of what it was like on the upper, where all that we had cut patches out to see what was going on from these leaks coming through.
How was the investment justified in the first place? Was there some kind of a study which said College Avenue needs 10 stories of office space, or,
Originally,
yeah?
I don't know. I think it was probably a mix of a passion project for him, and he occupied the upper floors originally with his company in the new building. He had the entire building of the one that burned down.
And at that time, everything was downtown, so it was
Right.
a very different world.
Right. Yeah, so this is the exposed new structure. So insulation
Ceilings were power joints going across, and then they just,
on 7 through 12 when they expanded the building. Yes, everything else is gigantic steel I-beams that are cased in concrete, carrying the cast in place. And that's what made it tough. That structure is really hard to core through because there's rebar everywhere.
had a lot of core drilling, huh?
The amazing amount, just an amazing amount.
It would be endless. I mean, with all your technology, plumbing, electrical, you name it.
Yep, and this is an example of the floor where the hallway wall was moved. There was terrazzo, then there left us a hole, so we patched it in with concrete and then did a finish on top of that. It just, every step of the way, there's going to be something crazy going to figure out.
Any estimate to ever
Yes.
tear it down, what it would cost to tear it down if you weren't gonna?
Probably the cost to tear it down, I don't know. I didn't get a quote on it, so I think it would have been a lot. Yeah. Yeah, not going there. But this is like where we were. This was on 12. This is kind of mid-construction here after we had painted these hallways. That's an This is one of the. This is post hallway expansions. This is an example of you can't tell the difference between what was and what is now.
So you see the terrazzo?
Yes, the terrazzo was pretty easy. You just had to grind it, polish it, and then reseal it. Dealing with all the patching with epoxy was a little bit involved, but
Did you happen to, or anybody happen to see Mr. Zuelke wandering around?
I was at one point I was seeing him in my dreams, I think, but yeah, he's rumored to be there.
Did you preserve the original doors that went into those offices?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like this one's, let's see if I can find a better example here. Maybe on a different floor. I should have opened up all these folders because now only some of them loaded. Yeah. Yeah, so these are those second floor units, which are pretty cool, little unique windows. The ceiling height's a little lower, but we got it up pretty high. We got it really tight up to the deck. It was way lower at that bulkhead level is where the ceiling was when we first started. So it felt like your head was going to bump in some of these areas. These little lobby windows were interesting to deal with, but we figured it out because those are inside of units. They are cool windows, and we have really cool drapes on them. But these second floor units are so cool because you take this cool stairwell up, and they both directly access your door. Here's some marble on the second floor before they were polishing it, or maybe kind of in between polishing coats. You can see the marble in this. So a lot of all the second floor, much of the third and fourth and fifth have marble flooring in the unit.
Do you allow pets there?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yep, we have a dog wash station in the property, and then we have a like a pet relief area outside in the back. So pets are a big deal. It's something like 40% of our residents across our whole portfolio have a pet. So if you don't accommodate pets, expect to have less leasing. Which is also why like we don't do carpet. So, what's that? There are some children, yeah. So, we don't have a lot of 2-bedrooms. We have 8 2-bedroom, 2 baths. The rest are 1s, and then there's 4 studios. Yeah, it's hard to like understand exactly what was going on with the building when it first was built because the 2 elevators go up to 10, and then there's 1 elevator from 10, 11, and 12. So right now, if you live on 11 or 12, you take the elevator up and you change elevators. So I think when Irving Zuelke had his business on 11 and 12, he had a private elevator that probably was on some type of key, so only whoever in his company could go up there. Yeah. So it's a fun ripple, I guess, for those.
I'm curious if anyone ever rode the elevator. I've heard stories there was like someone that actually like rode you up the elevator.
Elevator operator.
Yeah. We also had to have that during construction. Not now. But we did the entire time during construction because the state said that until this elevator gets certificate of occupancy, you gotta have it manned. So we did that. All right.
Any other questions? John Miller.
There's so many apartments recently built downtown or going up even now. Did you have to have a feasibility study to justify the investment in this building?
We did do a market study, but we're pretty confident that it doesn't matter how many apartments are built, they're going to get full.
Because this is a rather elite situation.
Yeah, and just the demand is just in every single market, there's just not enough supply. Everyone asks us this question, but in almost every market, it's over 95% leased in every city we're in, and they could build 2,000 more, and it seems to not have an end in sight.
Wow.
Are any of your units the like Airbnb kind of thing? Where
No.
someone's using it that way? Do you like not allow that?
Do not allow that.
They're all leased, they're not, it's not a condominium.
Correct, all leased, no short-term rentals. You can't short-term rental your own apartment either.
Subleases.
No subleases, no night lease. Excuse me?
Typical lease term.
Yeah, we're pretty we're flexible. I think we'll do some shorter 7-8 month leases if somebody wants to pay a small premium to do that, just because we'll have to get the unit ready in a shorter period of time.
People that are in transition.
Yeah. So we entertain that, but not any shorter because it just turns into too much like a hotel, and we want
Long-term people living there. Okay. Wow. Thank you. Well, thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.